Jake Wallis Simons is with me now. He's author of Israelophobia, the newest version of The Oldest Hatred and What to Do About It. Jake, it's great to talk to you. I just wonder whether you think Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC, can cling on to his job with all that we now know about what happened at Glastonbury and the decision that he apparently made to keep Bob Vylan on the air, these people who had their ludicrous, horrendous, dreadful anti-Semitic rant and then were kept on the air for another 40 minutes.
I think Tim Davie falling on his sword now would be pretty catastrophic for the BBC, considering that its charter renewal is coming up for debate very shortly. Having said that, the idea that he can cling to his job, I mean, he's understood to have told friends that he believes he can weather this storm, but the idea that he could do that despite not just this current Glastonbury scandal, but also the repeated failures of BBC reporting standards since October the 7th and even before with regard to reporting on the Israel-Hamas conflict. The fact that he could cling to his job even as far as he has, I think is surprising to a lot of people. If he's able to cling to it through this storm, I think it'll be even more surprising. I mean, look, I think the best way of measuring it is imagine if the BBC had misreported towards Muslims or towards trans people or towards black people as consistently as it has misreported about Jews in Israel ever since October the 7th. I think the idea that he would still be in his position, it would be laughable. And yet he's able to survive scandal after scandal, whether it's reporting on Hamas using a family of a Hamas official, whether it's misreporting the strike on Al-Ahli hospital, which wasn't an Israeli strike, it was, of course, a failed Islamic Jihad rocket, or all the other examples of misreporting, culminating in this egregious failure to kill the report, to kill the live stream properly of Glastonbury, even while there were calls for the death of IDF soldiers. I think it's egregious, and really I think he's living on borrowed time. But, you know, given the climate at the moment, it's not a dead cert that he will have to fall on his sword.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Bob Vylan is two people. They both call themselves Bobby Vylan. The real name of this person, horrible anti-Semitic person, is Pascal Robinson Foster, which sounds much poncier than Bobby Vylan. This is what he said at Glastonbury on Saturday.
Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! To the IDF! Death, death to the IDF! Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
What I'm interested in all of that, Jake, is not just what Avon and Somerset Police do in their criminal investigation that they've now launched into Pascal Robinson Foster and his conduct. What I'm interested in is the thousands, literally thousands of people, not everybody there, but the thousands of people who shouted it back. Because what the police now do is they go through video footage of all sorts of things, CCTV, some of them are using facial recognition, they go through tweets as well to see what people have been doing. Surely they should go through the footage of that to identify the people who are shouting back the anti-Semitic phrase and arrest them too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like trying to pin jelly to a wall, trying to enforce the law when so many people are so brazenly flouting it. You know, the problem is one of culture. On the left, the culture has changed so much in the direction of pro-Gaza fanaticism. And frankly, the BBC has been responsible for encouraging a lot of that with its style of reporting. And the police has played its fair share in treating these people with kid gloves until the problem has grown out of hand. We now reach a stage where it's reached such critical mass, it's very difficult to start to put the milk back in the bottle, even when the police tries to enforce the law. I mean, the thing that really strikes me is that British people don't shout death to things. Death, death to anybody is not a British thing to shout. When we disapprove of something, we might shout down with something or other assorted football chants. But death to something is really a translation of an Arabic chant. It's from a different culture than our own. That's been translated, is now making its way into the mainstream gradually from the left into the youth culture and into the mainstream. Activists all over the place now are starting to take up this battle cry as their new sort of call to arms. And it says a lot, I think, about the way in which the overlap between the far left and the forces of jihad has now begun to converge. They're now using the same sort of language and articulating the same sort of bloodlust and the same sort of desires. It's a terrifying and really unforeseen moment of cultural convergence between jihadism and leftism that's being broadcast by the BBC from Glastonbury into millions of homes.
It's interesting as well that later today Parliament will talk about other activists, Palestine Action, who they have been involved by their own admission. In fact, they put the footage up themselves online brazenly of them and RAF Bryce Norton, and there's going to be a discussion and then a vote in Parliament about whether they should become a prescribed organisation. There's a couple of other organisations as well that are being prescribed probably by the end of the day. I wonder whether you think, some of the usual suspects will vote for or against that. We're going to talk to Lord Walney in a minute or two about that. But Diane Abbott, for example, and Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell all voted against Al-Qaeda becoming a prescribed organisation back in the day. And Diane Abbott has put a post online as well, which I think we can see now if you're watching on the screen, of talking about the IDF, the Israeli Defence Force, the Israel Defence Force, as the Jewish Defence Force. That is the corrected tweet that is on there now, but she originally called them the Jewish Defence Force. The mask slipped, Jake, didn't it?
It did indeed, and no more regularly does the mask slip than from Diane Abbott, and thank God for that in a way, because she shows us the dark stuff that Labour is really made of. It's not snake oil selling like it is for much in the cabinet, but she actually reveals what the pulsing heart of Labour really feels. And Diane Abbott, yeah, I mean, the tweet that she originally put up was, "Beyond horrific that the Jewish Defence Force is gunning down Palestinians as they queue for food," based on some very, very dubious reports and disputed reports indeed, that the IDF has nothing better to do than to gun down Palestinians while they're queuing for food. There
certainly have been Palestinians who have died, Jake, getting some of that aid, certainly, and there's a report in Haaretz, which is sort of the Guardian of Israel, being very, very critical. Some of that, of course, has been denied by the IDF and the Israeli government about shooting towards or at, and actually the English translation of the Hebrew has been problematic as well. But of course, people like Diane Abbott will seize on that and say, their reductive idea, Israel bad, Hamas good.
Exactly. I mean, I called them those reports dubious and disputed, and it definitely is dubious and disputed. I mean, you're right. It seems to originate in this far left Israeli newspaper. Yes, Israel has its own far left, like the Corbynites here, which is as anti-Israel as everybody else, believe it or not. But look, Diane Abbott...
It's almost as if, Jake, that having a democracy and a free press is something which means that people can write things and say things that we disagree with. I'm just trying to think of all the other countries in the Middle East where there's a free press and they recognise things like same-sex marriage and, they allow women to go to work. And I can't really think of any others, oddly.
Yeah, it's weird that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it strange that the worst apartheid Nazi regime in the Middle East happens to be the only one with freedom for women, minorities, with a proper democracy, and with Arabs in prominent positions in civil society?
Well, I would only expect a Netanyahu apologist, genocide denier like you to say that, Jake. Certainly,
Yeah, bang to rights. But look, I had a quick look through some of Diane Abbott's other tweets. And look, this is her on Iran. Trump knows that Iran is not close to building a bomb, but he's directing the attacks on Iran anyway. Netanyahu is aiming for regime destruction. And her views, of course, on Palestine Action, banning Palestine Action, she said, is really, capital letters, wrong. What Israel is doing is terrorism. What Palestine Action is doing is protesting it. So it seems like she would rather that we proscribe Israel than Palestine Action. This from a woman who is allied closely with Jeremy Corbyn, who famously called Hamas and Hezbollah his friends.
There's really nothing more to say. Jake, thank you very much indeed for that analysis. Jake Wallis Simons, their author of Israelophobia, the newest version of The Oldest Hatred and What to Do About It.